And welcome to the Barry Foster Show, originating from the Ridge Flora Studios in the city of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. I'd like to remind you that if you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for our program, just drop us a line. It's the Barry Foster Show at gmail.com. That's the Barry Foster Show at gmail.com. Check out our YouTube page at the Barry Foster Show daily. We'll be putting up new programming regularly. And please subscribe to our YouTube page and join our pages at the Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram. That would be very helpful. In the studios, John Larsen with us again.
Good morning.
Talking about things to come. We'd like to thank all of our listeners, both here in Florida and across the fruited plain. We're talking about doing more things, talking with more people. And I know, John, you follow Dr. Mercola. Yes, that's being in the Ridge Flora Studios.
Making a floral delivery.
Talking about things that are happening in Florida, but I know you follow Dr. Mercola, and I was thinking about him the other day. I saw some testimony where a health expert was testifying before Congress, and he said that their research showed that when of deaths due to disease, 73% were due to the coronavirus vaccine. Not just the coronavirus, but the coronavirus vaccine.
Right, and we saw over the course of time, and I think more and more is coming out about the side effects of taking the jab, if you will, and some really sad stories. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know of one personally that I've known about for 5 years now. Very sad story. Excuse me, and whatnot. So I think it's timely that Victor, matter of fact, again, I got to go back. Victor David Hansen talked about it on his program this morning, and he was saying that, believe me, he said, the Chinese saw the after effect of how quickly they were able to shut the world down with COVID vaccine. And he said that they have many, many of these viruses lined up ready to go. So anytime they want to feel like they can shut the world down again, they'll release them into the populace and so on. So that's a scary, scary situation.
It's biological warfare. And we talked about this during the last program. I feel like we are under an unrestricted warfare with the Chinese, who don't mind doing anything. And it occurs to me that depending on what kind of an administration is in charge in the United States, that's the kind of response you'll get. I think under this Trump administration, after people saw what happened under the last coronavirus epidemic, or plandemic as some people call it, they won't be quite so quick to do the kinds of things they did last time.
No, and I think the governments, by and large, a lot of them, some won't because they're idealistic or they're socialist or whatever. They're going to believe anything that comes out from the world. The other thing, the people in charge have a lot to do with what happens. And we had, unfortunately, Fauci in charge of the health system in this country when that came about. And he was, to me, my personal opinion, he was as corrupt as anybody when it came to causing the side effects of what took place in this country.
Well, and things that we've since come to find out that if Fauci was in charge during the AIDS epidemic.
Oh yeah.
You know, and he's now was in charge during the coronavirus, and he has really dropped out of sight. I mean, he's nowhere to be found.
Well, the other thing that came out that Mr. Hansen talked about this morning, he said that he has now said publicly that he is an agnostic. He no longer believes in God, and also he's pro-abortion. So he has mentally, and publicly now flipped totally to what I call the insane side of things.
I think that he's decided that he's not going to be in charge of anything again.
No. And
at least, not with what people know. So they're going to have to go to someone else. And he's gotten his money. He's gotten his ability to do what he wants. And he's just gone.
Well, the thing of it is, though, he is still revered in a number of the, I call the socialist class in this country.
Oh, really?
Oh, absolutely. They still, bend at the knee of the altar of Dr. Fauci. Some people think he was gospel, that everything he said was true, everything he told us to do was factual, we needed to do it. And now you take, after 5 years, you look at the after effects. Now, there's still some COVID around, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. There are still people today that are contracting COVID, all right? But I think the public reaction to something like that going forward would be dramatically different than it was in 2020.
Well, I did an interview here several weeks back with Dr. James Markham, who is a cardiologist out of Tennessee, and he had a wonderful health prescription for people being able to take care of themselves with natural kinds of remedies. And he said, now, don't get me wrong, there are people who come to me and say, can't you prescribe to me some wonder drug? And he says, well, I can show you what the drugs are and give you your options, but there are ways that you can take care of yourself with much more natural ways of taking care of things. And it's a great interview to listen to. One is, and one of his great philosophies for getting well is worship, which is it's a great thing. But he was a big advocate of ivermectin, and now it seems like that has not. It's gone off the forbidden list, and if you're going to stock up on that kind of thing, now's the time to do it.
Right, absolutely, because I think that. I mean,
well,
I'm racing with that delivery.
We're gonna get
truck.
this. We're gonna get this thing fixed.
But yes, you're absolutely right. I think and again, the awareness of it when it first happened, we had never had anything like that in this country before. So I think everybody was skeptical, didn't know what to do. They were frightened. They were concerned. You got all these messages coming out. You're going to die. This is going to happen, and so on. So I think the American public was probably, and the world was probably ripe for somebody to come forward and say, okay, these are the things you need to do. 6 foot apart, no gatherings together. You can't go to church. You can't do this. You can't do that. And people bought into that because they thought this is a life or death decision for me to make. If I don't do it, if I don't do what they say, I'm going to die. My mother's going to die. My father, my children are going to die, and so on. And all of that was a narrative that was put forward to try and convince people that do what we tell you to do. It was going back to like the days of Hitler, okay, going back and so on. So, and they used Fauci as the god-awful person who has all the answers to what we should do, and so on. So I think this is the difference. Now people are more educated, they're more knowledgeable, and they're saying, wait a minute, time out, I don't buy this.
Well, number one, the message was all based on emotion. You're going to die. You're going to die by yourself. If you don't wear a mask, you're endangering everybody else, even if they wear a mask.
Right.
And the masks had about the same effect that the chain link fence has on mosquitoes.
Yep.
And as we've gone through this, and I mean, there are still people who are wearing masks.
Oh, yes.
There are still
Yep.
people around
Yep.
who are wearing masks,
Yep.
who are terrified, and if you haven't gotten the jab, they won't see you. And I've just, some of these people you've just written off. Said, well, I guess I'm never going to see them again.
Right.
But there are those who now, as we have gone through this, saw the fallacy of the fact of the whole idea with the mask. Then you had to wear 2 masks. Okay, and then it was ivermectin, and it wasn't ivermectin. And then as we went through, we found out that everything that they were telling us might not have been true, but it was all based on emotion. And my dear friend, John Scaglione, who was my audiologist, my webmaster, a dear friend, I'm speaking on his John Scaglione Memorial microphone right now. It was a gift to me, and I can't thank Christy enough for that. But he, I believe, died because of treatment for the coronavirus. They had him on the first thing they did, they slapped him on a ventilator, and then they said, no, don't put him on ventilators. It was too late for him, and he was months in recovery. And his wife was finally allowed to go in and see him in one of these hazmat suits, and I think personally, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express, but I think that seeing his wife brought him back as much as anything. But they isolated people from their loved ones where they couldn't see they couldn't embrace each other. And as you say, people bought into it right away. We went back to 1918 and the great Spanish flu epidemic, where they let just people go through this epidemic, developed a herd immunity, and a lot of people died, but the rest of us were stronger and went on. I shouldn't say us. I wasn't alive in 1918. But now I think you're right. I think people are going to be much more circumspect and much more anxious to find out who did it, why did they do it, and what's the comeuppance for that?
Right. And I don't think the end of, believe there's still some investigating going on within the halls of Congress, all right, by the Republicans, specifically in the House, investigating still Fauci and his involvement. The other thing is, Fauci was one of those that got the pardon all the way back to 2014. There's an investigation going on now as to whether those pardons are good, or
Yes.
if they're factual, if they're worth anything, and that may, depending on the investigation and what the outcome is, it could be that all of those people that received the pardon are not pardoned.
Those pardons are under deep scrutiny. Again,
Yes.
I saw a clip the other day of a gentleman talking about meeting in the Oval Office with President Biden, then President Biden, and he was talking about, why have you paused LNG, which is liquid natural gas?
Mm-hmm.
Why have you paused that? He's, oh, no. We didn't pause it. We're just doing a study. He says, oh, no. You signed an executive order saying you're pausing LNG.
Right.
And he's, no, I didn't. He says, and they showed it to him, and he didn't know what he was signing.
Right.
He didn't know what he was signing. So there is the argument that he may have signed things that he didn't know what they were, and there are people, and I'm still not sure I have heard reports, they have identified those with the auto pen. I will have to see that on a number of very legitimate news services before I believe it, but I think they're deeply looking for who was using the auto pen, what were they using it for, and did Joe Biden have any clue what was going on?
Well, when you look at it, they've overlaid all the signatures associated with the pardons, and they're identical.
Yes.
So there's 12, 13, 4, however many there are. I cannot sit and write 12 or 14 things supposed to be identical and make it look identical. It wouldn't be anywhere near. So for someone to say, well, he couldn't have. Not when you overlay all of those and they're identical, every stroke, every size, every shape, every letter is perfect, one after the other. So to me, that's an impossibility. So if it's the case and it gets investigated, will they find out exactly who did this? And they weren't authorized to do it.
And we have seen President Trump now sitting at a desk with 20 executive orders in front of him, and the aide says, this is what it is, this is what it does, okay? And he's well aware of what that is, and they said, well, see, they're explaining it to Trump because he doesn't understand it. No, they're explaining it because when he gets ready to sign it in public so everybody sees that he's actually signing this order,
Right.
and then he holds it up for people to look at it, and they can take a picture.
Yep.
Well, that's what he signed. So when he signs this order, it's been explained on video, and you see him sign it by hand, so you know that there's no auto pen involved in any of that.
Right. And that's one of the things I think he said as this started to come to the surface was, I would never use the auto pen unless it were something like, if someone asked me to send a happy birthday to Johnny Jones, he said, I might do that with an auto pen because I don't have the time in the day to, so many requests for his signature on something. So those kind of things. But when it's a executive order, changing, adding, subtracting from something, yes, he does it visibly.
Yeah, some commemorative thing, today's National Baseball Day or something.
Yes.
Yeah, just
Right.
go ahead.
Yeah.
That'll be fine. But when, as you say, when it's something of note,
Yep.
and something that he has been able to do, and it's one of the problems with EOs, and it will cause. We've seen the left flip flop when other presidents were in office. Joe Biden and some of those guys were in office. EOs were like gold. They were like a king's order. When President Trump's in, well, that doesn't have much weight, and so I think that by the time we get to the end of the Trump administration, what executive orders can and cannot do will be much clearer for everyone.
Yeah, well, in order to make anything happen, I think he has signed many more executive orders this time than he did the first time. But I think he says, look, I want to make sure that something is started, something's moving, something's going forward. I'm not going to wait for Congress because I can't depend on them. So I'm going to sign an executive order to get this thing going.
I grew up on Star Trek, and the Star Trek spaceships moved at the speed of light, which was called warp speed. And so now I have another expression that I use when I want things to move quickly. I say we're going to move at Trump speed. Trump 2, Trump 8, Trump 9. In other words, we're going to move at I've been involved with a couple of different organizations where things have not been moving as quickly as I would like. And I have expressed my dismay that we can't move at Trump speed. And with the amount of time he has to undo the untold amount of damage that's been done to this country, he's going to have to move at that kind of speed.
Well, you figure that it took Joe Biden or his acolytes 4 years to get the country in the terrible condition that it's in. And Trump is trying, you've got so many things you have to go up. You've got multiple wars going on you're trying to settle. All right, you're trying to get the economy up and running. You're trying to get the cost of things down. You're trying to build up the military. So there are so many issues that were ignored, just set aside, nothing done in 4 years of Biden. And nobody knew what was going on because who was in charge, we don't know. All right, certainly wasn't him for the bulk of the whole time he was there and whatnot. So this, this is, Trump is getting a lot done. The other thing I think is happening, he's doing things, like you said, at such warp speed. It's driving the Democrats crazy because they can't keep up with it. Today he's a devil for this, tomorrow he's a devil for that, the next day he's a devil for something else. So this is what you got. Keep them off balance.
And they have not had enough time to focus in. And I think that Donald Trump for 4 years was planning his presidency.
Yes.
And he was. They were very, very blessed to get Elon Musk and his crew of autistic students to go in and begin to doge things. And some of these some things, and on this taping on Tuesday, May the 27th, those gas prices have come back down. I mean, within just a matter of days, they've gone from $3.19 to $2.89.
Well,
okay?
Most of the ones I passed coming up this morning were $2.99. There's one here I think is $2.91 and one up, but most everybody is below $3.
Yes.
Now that last week and the week before, come Tuesday, bingo, they would jump right up to like $3.15, $3.19. But it didn't happen this time, and I'm saying I'm hoping this is the beginning of a cycle.
Part of the problem is, even though you have more oil production, we still, and I don't understand why under the Trump administration we are not seeing more gasoline production facilities built. Because there are so many rules and regulations, it's not economically feasible.
Well, and I'll tell you, California is shutting down one of the biggest refiners out there in California.
Oh,
and
really?
It not only affects California, it affects all the surrounding states that get their gas and that from that refinery. So there's going to have to be a refinery built to replace that one in California, if in fact, and they are definitely going to shut it down. So I'm hoping that Trump can convince another state to say, okay, we'll allow a refinery to be built here.
Yes. And the other thing that's moving, and it's moving quickly, but we won't see the results for some time, is as illegal aliens get dumped off the rolls of Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, some of these other things that I have heard that he has taken a bunch of money that was being used to put up illegals in luxury hotels and is now focusing that same money on homeless veterans. As it takes a while for those things to turn over, and so as we go along, it won't be tomorrow or even next week, but hopefully within the next 90 days. Let's hope by the time we go live on this program that many of the things that he has promised will be coming to pass, so that we can see what he was able to really fire up a huge trillions of dollar economy in his first term, and I think he can come back and get his. And then the next thing is who's on the bench. I saw just yesterday the new dream team that no one's talking about yet, which is J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. I don't know about that, but I think that the one thing that they're going to be needing to look at down the road is who can take what Donald Trump has been doing and perpetuated the same way they took what Barack Obama had been doing and perpetuated in the Biden administration.
Well, I did see last week that, was it Donald Trump Jr.? I think it was Donald Trump Jr. said, they asked him, they said, would you want to be a candidate in the next election cycle? He said, that's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we
so,
heard that about Michelle Obama too.
I know,
I mean,
I
you
know,
know,
but,
it's silly season. It's easy
Yeah.
to prognosticate about that kind of
I
thing.
will say that I think Marco Rubio's stock has gone up quite a bit since he became the Secretary of State. He seems to be getting things done. He seems to be following in line. Certainly, it appears to be he's in lockstep with Trump on a lot of the stuff on the world stage.
I think that Senator, now Secretary Rubio, has been doing a good job at putting forward the administration's policies. How much of that he agrees with, I don't know. But when I was a disc jockey doing commercial advertisements, it was all in who paid your bill, okay? If it was a supermarket, that Publix was the place to go, when Dixie was the place to go, or Aldi's was the place to go, whatever it was, whoever was paying that paycheck, that was the place, and it was all about that. And so I think that Secretary Rubio has been told, this is what we're going to do, and this is how you're going to do it, and he marches forward and does that. And too much to his credit, that he doesn't try to, as far as we've seen, do any workarounds or try to soften or change the president's philosophy on that. So
Yep.
he has done a good job, and I think most of the people that we've seen Donald Trump nominate have done a spectacular job.
Yeah.
I am not real happy so far with the Secretary of Education. She has not been able to unravel that at Trump speed.
Yeah, I don't know where she's been going with it. I haven't heard too much from her since the outset and whatnot, when he said, look, we're nominating you for this position, but we want you to be out of that position, and so on. So, but there may be some things there, because transferring the money, let's say, pick a number, let's say they're talking $100 billion for education, and you got to distribute that to 50 states, make sure that they've got the funds to do what Department of Education, and let them do it through the states. That's probably going to take a little time, I would think, because California is going to want $99 billion out of the 100, okay, and then you've got $1 billion left for everybody else. So that's the thing you've got to decide. Who really deserves this money and how much should they get?
And the other thing is unraveling this is that much of the money is going to support mandated federal programs. So if the Department of Education says you start with 12 programs, and you start with program number 1, say, we no longer are going to require you to do this, so you're not going to need money for that.
Right.
And we're not going to require you to do that now, and you don't need money for that. And we're not going to require you to do this other thing over here, so you're not going to need money for that. So as the programs and the strings attached go away, then by definition, you won't need the money, so that money will kind of dry up, because you're no longer, now, maybe there's a program that you think is great, and you want to continue doing it. Well, fine. You can do it on your own terms, or maybe the state, maybe Governor DeSantis says, this is a great program. It's a program designed to teach American history. Well, we can work on funding that. We can help, fill that in. But I think that when the Jews were told that they could go up and take the promised land, they were told, you're not going to get it all at one time. You're going to get a little bit until you get that settled, and then we'll give you a little bit more, and we'll give you eat the elephant one bite at a time. And so I think that in unraveling this, it would make sense for them to unravel individual programs and then do away with that individual funding, so that as you wean them off it a little bit at a time. And like you, I haven't seen anything about anything with the Department of Education.
No, not anything concrete. I mean, there was a lot of talk at the outset, how quickly we're going to disband this organization and so on. But I think when they got in there to see, there's probably some complexities involved in dismantling something as big as the Department of Education. And then again, you've got to determine, okay, we're going to now send the money to the states, How are they going to get it? How much are they going to get? And what are they going to do with it? Because if you get somebody like Crazy Newsom out there in California, let's say he gets, pick a number, $25 billion, and then 6 months he's spent all the money, and he comes back and says, well, I need 25 more. No. This is a one-time amount of money you get each year. You then have to determine how you're going to make that last for 12 months before you come back and ask for more.
Yeah, and I think that if they begin little by little to do away with some, and they'll be hollering and screaming like there is over the big, beautiful bill, which is made it through the House, now going to the Senate on this, as of Tuesday, May the 27th. President Trump has been looking at this with big eyes, saying, if they want to make a few tweaks, that's one thing. Let's hope they don't make any major changes.
Well, Mitch McConnell, he might have said it too, but anyhow, Chuck Schumer this morning said, no Democrat senator is going to vote for this bill. And so now you're going to get into arm wrestling. The other thing that everything's going to happen, including the turning down or getting rid of the Department of Education, lawsuits. There's going to be many, many, many lawsuits flying. And if nothing else, what that does is slow the process down.
Yes.
It just slows it down. You now have to go to court. You have to argue this, argue that. Hopefully you win. If you don't win, you have to take it to a higher court and start the process all over again. So that's the tactic that the Democrats are using. They have no leadership. What they're using are the courts as their leadership. That's all they've got. And
it's going to take some real effort for us as citizens. And again, I just got to go back. We started at the beginning talking about the educational,
COVID,
the health community. We're talking about the educational community. On Tuesday, I had a great interview with Raj Doraisamy from Defend Florida, which is now Defend Other States as well, talking about building coalitions in terms of the health community, the education community, Second Amendment people, people who have a number of different things that they're interested in, building that together to build the kind of leadership, principled leadership we need on the local level, which then goes to the state level, which then goes to the federal level. And this is something that if you have the chance to go to the Defend Florida website or reclaimcampaign.com, it's something that I think we can begin to see things change. And as we watch things, nothing happens in a vacuum. I think things can happen locally, as well as statewide, as well as nationally. We haven't even gotten into what's coming up next in the middle of next month, which is the tax session from the Florida House of Representatives, talking about, do we do tax cuts in sales taxes or in county taxes? And I have to tell you that Evan Power is the chairman of the Republican Party of Florida, and he started this thing called #RollBackNow that would freeze basically your taxes at the same level you had last year. They wouldn't increase. They wouldn't necessarily decrease, but they certainly wouldn't increase. And it's something that has to be done on a countywide level. We have been trying, and I've tried 3 different channels so far who are people who know how to get things done, to try to get somebody from his office to contact us and talk to us, because here in Highlands County, or if you're listening in Hardee County, Polk County, or you're listening in any of the counties, you're listening down there in West Palm Beach, you'd have to do this on your own county level to get, of the 66 counties, to get them to go to the rollback levels and at least not grow government, which I've seen since I arrived in 1986 here. I've seen it grown exponentially. And so trying to get some of these people has not been a thing, but it's something that I think Defend Florida is all about. And we're going to be talking about their event coming up on July the 26th. And I think that building these kinds of collaborations is going to be what's going to ultimately get the job done.
Yep. I wanted to touch on something just quickly.
Sure.
Going back, Dr. Mercola, he had a blurb that he put out on the 22nd of May, which was just a few days ago. And he was talking about 5 major heart risk factors at age 50. High blood pressure, imbalanced cholesterol, diabetes, obesity, and smoking. Reduce your lifespan by more than a decade. People with none of these risk factors lived significantly longer and had more disease-free years. Women gained 14 and a half years of life. Men gained 11.8 years of life. And he said, and I don't know how to, linoleic acid from vegetable oils damage mitochondrial function and is a hidden root cause of cardiovascular problems, and that should be largely eliminated from your diet. Vegetable oil. Now, I've been led to believe that of all the oils, other than virgin olive oil, vegetable oil was good for you. This here says no, okay? Addressing even one risk factor after you're in your 50s adds years to your life. Lowering high blood pressure and quitting smoking offered the greatest benefits in the study. Beyond avoiding vegetable oils, healthy carb consumption, daily walking, regular sunlight exposure help restore their cellular energy production and metabolic health.
And D3 in sunlight is immutable. I mean, you can't argue with that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and my wife, who is a self-described nutty person, will be glad to tell you about how vegetable oils have changed. And I got a real education about Crisco, which when I grew up, that was just a normal. Apparently, that is an industrial lubricant that they've sold to people to consume, and many people will tell you, or at least some of the nutty people will tell you that you don't want to be anywhere near any of that stuff. So, I mean, yes, since I got married to my wife Sandra 11 years ago, I have had a much more organic diet than I've had in the past, and I never felt better. But and maybe someday I'll have her in to talk about that as well, because it's something that these are things that we can do easily on our own,
right,
and begin to look at the kinds of things that are going on, and it's easy for us to maintain our level of health. So Dr. Mercola talks about it, and we talked a little bit earlier about Dr. James Markham, who I did a great interview with him. He's a cardiologist out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, who talks about the same kinds of things.
Right.
And we can improve not only our level of health, but our kids' level of health and our grandkids' levels of health.
Right.
And now's the time to do it, because there was a time when you couldn't get ivermectin.
Well, I think the other thing we got going in this country right now is RFK Jr.'s efforts in making the country healthy again. I don't think there's any doubt that if he doesn't get bamboozled by the courts or whatever, I think he's going to be able to make some major strides in nutrition, especially in young kids. I mean, it is so sad today to see what I call chubby bubbies, little kids that are like 2-3 years old, and they're already at a weight that should be for an 8 or 9 year old. And it's because of the consumption and the lack of exercise that these kids are getting that way. And then they grow up to be adults, and they're maybe grossly overweight. They suffer from all kinds of, like Dr. McCullough says, and other doctors, heart issues and so on and so forth. So I think his efforts, if he's allowed to produce the goals that he has in mind, we're going to see a much different society in this country.
I hope you're right. And the food dyes that RFK Jr. has been able to get out. I mean, he's although they're holding him off for several years to get it out of there,
I know,
when they should be able to shut it off today.
Right, absolutely.
They should be able to say no more. And if your cereal doesn't have the same color snap, at least it's not going to be bad for your health. So,
yep.
But I know. We've come to the end of another program, John. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being on. People love it when we're on together, and we are moving forward toward getting a live program. As we talked at the beginning of the program, we're at this taping on Tuesday, May 27th. We have 84 subscribers. If you have not yet subscribed, please do subscribe. If you can, share it with some other folks. If you want to install this on your homepage, you just go on to your smartphone, go to thebarryfostershow.net. You can go to the .com, but it'll still take you to thebarryfostershow.net. And you hit the three little buttons there, and it'll say Add to Homepage. You add it to your homepage, it'll take you right to the YouTube page, and you'll be able to hear all the programs you want. If you have any ideas of people you want, please contact us. You have been listening to the latest edition of the Barry Foster Show, recorded on Tuesday, May 27th at the Ridge Floor Studios, located in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. If you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for our program, drop us a line at thebarryfostershow@gmail.com. And check out our YouTube page at The Barry Foster Show Daily, as we're putting up new programming on a regular basis. And please subscribe to our YouTube page, please. And join our pages at The Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram. John, thank you again
Quite all
for
right.
being with us.
Yep.
And we'll see you next time.